Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Anik Fayyakwa bin Ahmad Nordin. I'm going to be the first presenter of the topic, which is global warming. The second presenter is Muhammad Farhan, and third is Muhammad Zul Hakim. My metric number is 2018401472, and the second presenter is 2018261242, and the third is 2018801842. Okay, now we're going to proceed with the global warming. Actually, a few years ago, I take a geography in Form 6. This topic really make me feel so eager. So the first thing is, what is global warming? Before I take the subject, I thought that global warming is just an increase in temperature and it's just a normal thing. Now, let's go through the meaning of global warming. According to the Wikipedia, global warming is the unusual increase of temperature in the Earth's surface. Global warming is when the sun's energy enters the atmosphere and hits the Earth by light wave. The energy warms the Earth and re-radiates infrared wave back into space. Some of the infrared radiation going into space naturally trapped by the atmosphere, which keep the temperature on Earth moderate. The thin layer of the Earth's atmosphere is now being thickened by a large amount of human-caused greenhouse gases, like CO2. The thickening of Earth's atmosphere traps the infrared radiation, which then warms the temperature of Earth's atmosphere and ocean. Over the past century, the temperature has been rapidly increasing because of greenhouse gases caused by burning fossil fuels. Sometimes people get confused whether global warming is the same thing as the climate change. That's why I prepare the next slide, which is there any difference between global warming and climate change? Okay, first is global warming. The phrase global warming is used by scientists to mean a long-term increase in Earth's average air temperature. It can refer to specifically to such warming that is due to the influence of rising concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And the climate change is a bit different. Before we look into what climate change is, it may be helpful to think a bit about climate with respect to weather. Weather, which is often confused with climate, is the set of conditions in the atmosphere in one location for a limited period of time, such as throughout the day, at night, or any particular point during the day. Climate, on the other hand, is the average condition of the atmosphere in a given location over a long period of time, such as 30 years or more. Thus, climate change is a longer-term change in the average condition of the atmosphere. The term global warming and the climate change are often used interchangeably in newspaper and television, but they are the separate things. So to conclude this slide, global warming refers to global average temperature, and climate change is how the climate on different areas around the globe change over the time. Okay, let's proceed with the next slide, which is source of the global warming. Before we proceed, we need to go through with greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect is a natural process that warms the Earth's surface. When sun's energy reaches the Earth's atmosphere, some of it reflected back to the space, and the rest is absorbed and re-radiated by greenhouse effect. So the factor below is the enhancer for the greenhouse effect, which make the global warming. Okay, the first thing is natural causes, which include green gases, volcanic eruption, and methane gas. And the next thing is the human influence, which is the burning fossil fuel, which is the major contributor to the global warming. And the second is deforestation and tree clearing. And third is agriculture and farming. Next slide, we will go for further detail. Many people have perception that global warming is only result from human activities, but actually, the nature itself also the one who contribute to global warming. The first is green gases. Greenhouse gases are carbon monoxide and sulfur dioxide. It traps the solar heat rays and prevents it from escaping from the surface of the Earth. This has caused the temperature of the Earth increase. And the second is the volcanic eruption. For instance, a single volcanic eruption will release amount of carbon dioxide and ash to the atmosphere. When the CO2 increase, the temperature of Earth increase, and greenhouse trap the solar radiation in the Earth. Third is methane. Methane is also greenhouse gas. Methane is more effective trapping heat in the atmosphere than carbon dioxide by 20 times. Usually, methane gas can release from many areas. For instance, it can be from cattle, landfill, natural gas, petroleum system, coal mining, mobile explosion, or industrial waste process. Methane can come from many sources, both natural and man-made. One major source of man-made methane emission is the global oil and gas industry. Next slide, we can see how the factor contribute to greenhouse effect. Since the Industrial Revolution began in about 1750, carbon dioxide levels have increased nearly 38% as of 2009, and methane levels have increased 148%. Next slide is the human influence to the global warming. This is definitely the major contribution to global warming. The first is burning fossil fuels. When we burn fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas to create electricity or power our car, we release CO2 pollution into the atmosphere. And second is deforestation. Plants and trees play an important role in regulating the climate because they absorb carbon dioxide from the air and release oxygen back into it. Forests and bushland act as carbon sinks and are valuable means of keeping global warming to 1.5 Celsius. If there are less trees, how we gonna to reduce the CO2? And the next is the agriculture. Animals, particularly livestock like sheep and cattle, produce methane, a greenhouse gas. When livestock are grazed at a large scale, as in Australia, the amount of methane produced is big contributor to global warming. The fertilizer that farmers use also the contributor to greenhouse gases. The next slide is the global emission in 2010. There are three dominant things, which is the electricity and heat production, which is 25%. And the second is agriculture for forestry, which is 24%. And for the third is the industry, which is 21%.
Okay, next we go to effects of global warming. So first, effect on nature, effect on human, and last, effect on animal and plant. So effects on nature. Global warming, one of the most immediate and obvious effect of global warming is the increase in temperatures around the world. The average global temperature has increased by about 140 degrees over the past 100 years, according to National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Since record keeping began in 1895, the hottest year on record worldwide was in 2016. The year's Earth's surface temperature was 1.78 degrees warmer than the average across the entire 20th century. So, global warming also lead to extreme weather other than cold and heat extremes. For example, hurricane formations will change. Though this is still a subject of active scientific research. Current computer models of the atmosphere indicate that hurricanes are more likely to become less frequent on a global basis. Though the hurricanes that do form may be more intense. And even if they become less frequent globally, hurricanes could still become more frequent in some particular areas. Next, we go to effects on human. A changing climate thus affects the prerequisites of population health such as clean air and water, sufficient food, natural constraints on infectious disease agents, and the adequacy and security of shelter. A warmer and more variable climate leads to higher level of some air pollution. It increases the rates and range of transmission of infectious disease through unclean water and contaminated food by the affected vector organism such as mosquito and intermediate or reservoir host species that harbor the infectious agents such as cattle. Changes in temperature, rainfall, and seasonality compromise agricultural production in many regions, including some of the least developed countries, thus jeopardizing child health and growth and the overall health and functional capacity of adults. Also, when hurricane went to global warming, hurricane causes damage to horses and governments need to spend billions of dollars in damage and people need place to stay or have been killed by the hurricanes. Next, effects on animal and plant. So, as we know, the planet's ecosystem is extremely fragile and complex. Everything is interconnected to each other, and a small lapse in the ecosystem can cause disasters. For example, each year, we are noticing gradual changes that are cause for worry. For example, birds are laying their eggs earlier each year. Flowers are blooming earlier and animals who are hibernating wake up earlier. So, when the global warming give effect that species can lose of habitat. Species that include such as polar bears and tropical frogs will be extinct due to climate change. Besides, various birds will migrate to other places because animals are not like humans. They cannot adapt the habitat that changes their living or temperature. Forests, farms, and cities will face troublesome new pests, heat wave, heavy downpours, and increased flooding. All those factors will damage or destroy agriculture and fisheries.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Okay, so my name is Muhammad Zul Hakim bin Abdul Aziz. Okay, so basically I will continue for the improving and also control of the global warming. Okay, so for the first one is about deforestation. Next is sustainable transportation, and the third one is reduce water waste. Okay, so the first one we will go to the deforestation. Okay, so for the first one is do not cut down more trees. Okay, because when we cut down more trees, as it will only worsen the level of carbon dioxide in the air. So but instead encourage people to plant even more trees to create a fine balance in nature. Okay, so the next one is it reduce the usage of energy everywhere. Okay, so it does not matter if we are at our home or at our office. The higher the energy used, the more the carbon dioxide produced. Okay, thus do not waste electricity as it requires the burning of fossil fuels. As a result of the burning of fossil fuels, greenhouse gases in the atmosphere increase rapidly and it will contribute to global warming. Moreover, reduce the carbon footprint and do not travel through planes that often. Okay, next is replace all ordinary bulbs with LED lights. Okay, it will help in reducing the use of energy by a massive amount. Similarly, do not waste that energy. Instead of becoming more dependent, we need to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels and electricity right away. Okay, next is create more sustainable transportation habit. Okay, the first one is instead of ordering a private ride, do a ride share. Avoid rapid acceleration and braking and turn on cruise control on longer trips. Walk and bike to your destination whenever it is possible. Okay, so when we are buying a new car, it will be better choose a climate friendly option, which is a good tool to find a climate friendly. Okay, why it is so important? Car are one of the biggest contributors to climate change. It contributes 82% of emission from transportation comes from cars. And while cutting automotive transportation out of our life would make the most impact, this isn't possible for most people. So instead, tweak a few habits that will have a bigger collective impact. For example, if we refrain from harsh braking and rapid acceleration, we can cut our fuel consumption by as much as 40%, according to the US Department of Energy. Okay, so if we also keep our tires inflated and car maintained, we will cut our fuel consumption by nearly half when driving. Okay. Next is about reduce water waste. Okay, the first one is when we reduce water waste, it will saving water, reduce carbon pollution too. Okay, so next, take shorter shower. Reduce our shorter time and try to avoid bath when you can. Most baths use 35 to 50 gallons of water, but showers can use only about 25, especially when we have a low flow shower head. If we don't have one, consider investing in one, especially if we are renting. A new head is a great way to revamp our whole shower routine. Even the kids may enjoy it. Okay, next is check for leaks in the pipes. Don't forget to check the outdoor faucets and pipes too. Hopefully, we will notice if we are sprung a leak somewhere inside, but it can be easy to miss an outside one. Keep an eye on them and do a check at least every 6 months. Also, keep an eye on our water bill. If you notice that it's going up, we might be leaking somewhere. Okay, so the last point is reuse water. It's not always feasible goal to stop wasting water entirely. However, we can cut down drastically by saving and reusing the water we can. Instead of letting it all run down the drain, capture some of it. We can save water from washing our hands or rinsing vegetables and fruits to use on our lawn and to water potted plants. On average, each person loses about 10 gallons a day to leaks. That is completely fixable waste and one that will help our pocketbook. Some of these ideas are really easy. Everyone can skip a bath now and then. With droughts increasing each year, and some of the same places getting hit over and over again, saving water should be on everyone's to-do list. Remember, every gallon, it will help us. Okay, so for the conclusion, it is confirmed that global warming is the major challenge for our global society. There is very little doubt that global warming will change our climate in the next century. First, there must be an international political solution. The second one is funding for developing cheap and clean energy. Production must be increased, as all economic development is based on the increasing energy usage. We must not pin all our hopes on global politics and clean energy technology, so we must prepare for the worst and adapt. If implemented now, a lot of the costs and damage could be caused by changing climate can be mitigated. Okay, so that's all I think from us. Thank you for hearing and watching. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.